Race 4 of the BMW IBSF four-man bobsleigh World Cup. We're in Königssee, Bavaria, on the oldest artificial ice track in the planet. This week celebrates its 50th birthday, and Sunday is always the blue ribbon event. Hello everybody, ready for the European Championships in four-man bob. I'm Martin Haven. Alongside me, Canadian driver Alicia Rissling. Riz, you drove this track yesterday. Everybody knows this track, but how hard is it to get down? Let's take a look at Königssee.
Well, Königssee is actually one of the easier tracks, I'd say, to get down. There is one big corner that's a pivotal point in the Treichel, and that can be a little bit difficult, but it's a very short start. So about half of what we were doing last week when we were in Altenburg. So you got to get in and get down before these grooves run out, and then immediately out of the grooves, you want to try to bring the sled over the left into this first Treichel. No one can say the word. You want to come down the left wall, and you got to start early in these S curves. Now, all these S's, they're a rhythm. You got to feel it, you got to get your height, and then you got to stop that rhythm when you get to S4, catch, come around, and you want to take 3 taps down this bend away, a left, a right, and a left, and then you're into the Treichel. It's 3 pressures. You want to make it look like you're on train tracks. You want to be a straight line all the way around, and then you get into the tabletops. And from here, it's pretty much a free flowing the rest of the way down. There's very little steering to do. There's a lot of speed to lose these uphill corners, but for the most part, the steers are pretty easy, and you want to just coast the rest of the way down.
It's a proper old-fashioned track, isn't it? You know, it's not elevated apart from the Treichel. It's laid on the ground. Everything's at knee height when you're watching the race. So it's a great place to come and view. They do such a good job here. Big spectator grandstands at the bottom there. Now, our World Cup points leader is Francesco Friedrich. He's on a string of 4 straight wins in 2-man and 4-man. Nico Walter, Hansi Lochner, his teammates, lie 2nd and 3rd in the World Cup standings. And it's unlikely to see anything other than a German winner here. It's been a while since we've had a non-German win in 4-man. Alexander Zubkov was the last to do so. And before him, Pierre Luders back in 2006, 2007. There is Francesco Friedrich, the man of the moment, really, in 2-man and 4-man. Undefeated in 2-man. He's had 4 straight wins, and he's won the last 2 in 4-man as well. Well, after a snowy couple of weeks here where training conditions were very different, the ice is going to be relatively hard and relatively clear. Is that going to be different for the guys to drive?
I don't think the ice today is going to be much different than what we had in training conditions. We had a lot of snow, so the moisture in the air actually makes the track a little bit sticky, we call it. And we've got some rain, some humidity in the air right now, so I think for them the 4-man conditions will be pretty similar, unlike last night when the ice was a lot harder and it was a lot more cool. So we had really quick ice last night. We'll see how the track holds up for today, but I'm not expecting any track records.
All right, 23 sleds in our heat, including a couple of World Cup rookies making their first ever 4-man starts, the first of whom goes off first, Drazen Silic of Croatia, and Dmitry Popov of Russia starting 20th, also making his first ever World Cup 4-man start here. So we've got the European Championships to deal with as well. Let's get things underway. Race 4 of the BMW IBSF four-man bobsleigh World Cup with Croatia's Drazen Silic making his 4-man debut as a driver. He has raced here before as a brakeman for Ivan Sola, but this is his first time in a 4-man as a driver. He's got Mate Metsilic behind him. He's got Alexander Krasnic, who raced for Serbia previously, and the man on the brakes, Damian Zlatnar, has raced for Slovakia and Serbia. So this is a 4 different nationalities in the sled. The only Croatian is driver Drazen Silic, the 33-year-old.
Looks like they just got a bunch of buddies and put together and made a bobsled team.
That's the way it works, isn't it?
Yeah.
Well, these guys super excited to make the games in Pyeongchang in February. And now making his World Cup debut, and he's the guy who's going to give us an idea of what conditions are like.
And these guys ran that really deep. It took a little while to get that push handle in, and not the smoothest entrance into Treichel. So we'll see what they're able to do when they come around these S's. The S's, it's all about the rhythm. They got to find it. And this is where you get all your speed that sets you up for the rest of the track. Ooh, and a little skid out of S4.
Really skiddy out of S4 yesterday. Looks like it's the same today. Down into the Treichel and trying to keep a nice level line.
Yeah, the best sleds you'll see through there, the ones that we should see come out with the best speed, will be, looks like one smooth line the whole way around the Treichel.
Looked like a pretty decent exit down into the lower labyrinth, and then this huge Echo Van one corner from the exit here, climbing all the way to the finish.
And you want to make sure that you come out of there straight and try not to get any skids, because as you said, we're going to lose a lot of speed going on those uphill corners. You want to cut those last 2 finish corners off. So 50.53, I think that is pretty similar to what the 2-man guys were doing yesterday.
Yeah, yeah. And the fastest of the women's sleds were getting down to 50.5 seconds as well. So a little bit softer ice perhaps than they had yesterday in the 2-man race. And no snow, unlike training.
Yeah, no, we're lucky. Well, there's rain in the air right now, so it's warm outside and with the rain, so that's really going to not make for the greatest, fastest ice.
As they came into the finish yesterday, Dratsen's girlfriend Ariana handed him a rose across the wall, which he grabbed as he was coming into the braking area.
That was pretty epic.
Yeah, I went and caught up with her yesterday, and she was really enjoying her weekend. I think the boys are as well. Here we go, the Holcomb high five all the way down the line. Here we go, here we go, here we go. That's the way to do it. Next up is Justin Olsen of the USA, 9th place in last year's race here. That was the pre-Olympic finale, 4:94 getaway from the boys.
Pretty nice exit here, and he's bringing it over a little bit early, starting into the S1. That if you end up there a little bit too early, sometimes it will push you away, and you don't get on those nice lines to be able to get high through the S's. Pretty clean bend away. Olsen's pretty inexperienced as well with the, especially with his 4-man sled. So we'll see what he's able to put down in the run. And he's got a couple World Cup rookies on his team as well.
Yes, he has. The 2 brakemen have got a total of 3 4-man races between them, with this start included. Carl Wilcox on the brakes, made his 4-man debut last week. 49.66. Brian Simon looks pretty happy with that. That was a pretty clean run as well. It's a very different beast, isn't it? You know, you've driven 4-man, you've driven a 2-man sled as well. That extra length, but the extra weight must make it almost a different sport.
I can't believe the difference when I first jumped in a 4-man between that, the amount of control that the sleds have. So when you're driving a 2-man versus 4-man, the biggest thing is that, yes, it's a lot longer. So we say it's actually a lot easier to control the sled. You can feel the pressures, especially in this Kreisel. The 4-man, it was a lot easier to understand with the pressures in your hand and how you feel coming around. And then what a lot of the guys say in 2-man, they can't see it. And I'm like, try jumping in a woman's sled where we have even like 70 kilos less than that. So and it does make it harder, a little bit more squirrely in the 2-man. The 4-man, though, the biggest difference you say is even though you have a lot more control, it's a lot harder to get it out of trouble.
Yeah, gets out of shape easy. All right, third up is Brad Hall of Great Britain. 22nd here in the pre-Olympic race last year. So far this season, 15th and 17th in Winterberg, 13th in Altenburg, with behind him Alan Tohard from Middleton in Teesdale. Apparently no longer from Middlesbrough, he moved from last week. Nick Gleeson and Ben Simons are the rest of the crew.
If you've been tuning into these guys' Instagram this week, you would have been in for a real treat. Boys were taking requests daily.
Very easily led. 14th 4-man World Cup for Brad Hall. His best result, bronze medal in Park City last season. 4.90, that's a great getaway.
And they had a great load too, really quiet, and entered into their riding positions quickly, which plays a huge role in trying to get out there as quick as possible. Ooh. Oh, and a little skid coming out of S4, and that's going to just lead you. You end up taking multiple hits down the straightaway, or the bend away, I should say, and it's really going to affect your speed.
111.5 is 69 miles an hour into the Kreisel. Down at the bottom, 700s ahead. This is going to be very tight with Justin Olsen of the USA. Now we have 23 sleds, only 20 fastest go through. These guys will be in the teens somewhere. He's behind Olsen by 400, so very close with the American sled. And the Americans driving a new BMW 4-man, or relatively new. This Dresden chassis Singer Cal British sled has been around the block a couple of times. Coach Lee Johnson actually raced it in the 2002 Winter Olympic Games.
2002.
So this is a classic.
Oh, it's vintage.
It's nearly veteran, yeah.
Yeah.
Hangs it up late off S4. And then the back is got a mind of its own.
Yeah. And that, I think that will be one of the toughest things for these four-mans is coming out of that S4 corner and just making sure that you've got to get the nose and the back end off. And there's a bunch of rally base that's built up on the right-hand side, so if you come off too tight to the right, often your back end will just clip it, and that will send you right into the skid.
Next up, the fifth of our fourth, I'm getting ahead of myself, our 23 sleds is Maxim Anjanov of Russia. Last year, 15th. This year's four-man results, 5th and 6th in Winterberg, 5th again in Altenburg. This is very different Max Anjanov from last season. Really coming on strong. He's now the lead Russian driver.
You have to wonder, too, if that means if he's now Russia 1, does he get the Russia 1 equipment and how much impact that plays?
Well, he does, but he also gets the lead brakeman as well. So Vasily Kondratenko at 3. This is his 33rd four-man World Cup, so all the experience in the crew.
Our fastest push time so far with a 4:89 as well, so great start for this Russian team. That was a really clean S4.
It's like everything else, you know, you get a faster start, you've got more speeds that you can play with.
Great speed through the Treichel as well.
113 kilometers an hour fast. We've seen 70 miles an hour. A little rocky in the labyrinth.
He's got a huge lead, and I think that will continue to grow across the line here because he was really clean through the Treichel and through the tabletops.
Wow, huge speed, 122.9. Let's see where he maxes out. Just under 123 kilometers an hour, 76.3 miles an hour. That is huge speed at the bottom, and 5,600, so 49.10. Now, the all-time track record is 48.2. We're not going to get down there. It was very cold in the World Championships in February 2017. So cold that the lake had frozen for the first time in over a decade, so we're definitely not in that territory today.
We do have the same amount of snow that we had that year as well, though.
Yeah, we do. Yeah, it is proper winter wonderland here, isn't it?
Absolutely.
See how close the crowd gets to the track here as well.
Yeah, apparently this track, they didn't have the short walls in until a couple years ago. So they just expected the G-forces to hold the sleds into the track, and they added the short walls as an afterthought a couple years later.
Well, yeah, the track was a very different place. Bobsleds were a very different thing back in 1969 when the track was first opened as well. So speeds were not what they are today. Next up, fifth of our starters, Oskars Kybermanis. 5th place in the race last year. The top Latvian sled was tied for silver. That was Oskars Malbardis. And his results this year, 4th and 4th in Winterberg, silver medal last weekend in Altenburg. And he's having a very strong two-man season as well.
See what these guys can do. The 481, they are definitely one of the strongest starting teams. And their loads are just incredible, the way they get in and get down into that position. And Kybermanis is an exceptional pilot, so we'll see what he is able to come up here. I'm sure he'll be close to that Russian sled, if not still in the green.
Yeah, behind him, Arvis Vilkas and Janis Strenger are two of the 4 guys who set the start record with Oskars Malbardis and Dalman Streskins in the World Championship, so not exactly lacking for horsepower in this sled.
Definitely not.
10th up. Again, that shows how good Anjanov is becoming, because Kybermanis is absolutely world-class and on really good form at the moment. 700s, the gaps can be very close. Was 1300s up, 300s, 900s. He found something, or gave away less in the lower couple of corners.
Yeah, he took a little bit of a shortcut through those last 2 finish corners. Cut them off early.
Skidding across the line probably cost him a few hundreds, though. Anything that's sideways isn't forwards.
I'm going to disagree with you on that one because the finish line is actually just right after that corner. So if you can cut it off early, you might even save yourself a couple hundreds, and you break into that sideways skid up the braking stretch. It's not going to hurt you as much as you think. This Treichel is exactly what we want to see. It's just one straight line, smooth, controlled all the way around, using the pressures, and you never really stop steering there. You start, and then you give back, and then you start again and give back, and make it look like it's on train track.
Just massaging it around nicely. So there's Oskars Kybermanis, our race leader from Maxim Anjanov, and Justin Olsen, 5 down, and 15 and 3, 18 still to go. Never do maths on air. 6 of our 23 sleds, round 4 of the BMW IBSF 4-man bobsleigh World Cup. Austria's Markus Treichel, the 25-year-old in what's now his 13th World Cup as a driver. He was a brakeman before. 10th and 10th in Winterberg, 8th in Altenburg last weekend.
This 4-man team is really coming together, too. I think they've had some great results, and you can see the rain really coming down now. See what they're able to 491. So 10th back at the start and a little bit of an aggressive entrance into that first corner. That plays a massive role into what your speed can be starting, and the S's are really what sets you up for the rest of the track.
It's so easy to give away speed when you've barely got any, isn't it?
Yeah, and that he's out there a little sideways.
Great day in the women's race yesterday for the Austrians. They managed to grab a European bronze medal. Don't forget, North American sleds, USA and Canada don't count here. Everybody else up for European Championship honours. Treichel in third place on the splits at the moment, ahead of Justin Olsen.
Pretty clean lines through here as well. He's doing a really good job of managing those uphill corners. 3,300s back.
49.34. Well, that might leave him hovering around the 10 to 15 area. We saw that in yesterday's race. We saw that in Altenburg as well. The top 5 or 6 are in a slightly different battle, and then there's a massive group of up-and-coming drivers who are all in a huge dogfight. And the same in the women's race as well. It's massively tight.
It's what makes it entertaining for the rest of us.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely.
So he takes a little bit of a double tap here in the first part of the kink, so it's managed to straighten him out, actually, so he got lucky there.
Down through the labyrinth, the Canadian skeleton sliders call them the Doodles.
No, it's not the Canadians.
Everybody,
yeah.
Everybody does now.
Everybody does now. They keep saying that, and we just kind of adopt it. The bobsledders are still kind of the tabletops.
All right, okay. They don't need so much airtime, though. Alexander Bradikin of Russia now making his World Cup debut on this track. He didn't race here last year. He's a World Cup rookie this season. And so far, 3 top 10 results. 8th and 7th in Winterberg, 9th in Altenburg last week. And another young driver on the fast track in the Russian program.
Push here is so important. These guys only get a couple steps to get the sled to accelerate as fast as possible, so they have to make the most of every step. Velocity is a really important factor on this track. Like most bobsled tracks, it's a push track, but this one, your velocity is really what carries you, so really important to get off the line as quick as possible.
Yeah, you can't run it out all the way down to the first turn like we were doing in St. Moritz or in Innsbruck, so short, sharp acceleration. Bradikin, 2200s back as he gets to the Kreisel.
And that's what I'm talking about, those waves. You got to be able to manage those. And he falls out of the corner a little bit. He manages to fall out kind of down the middle and gets away with it, but that really will affect your speed.
So 2300s back. Let's take a look at the speed. 75.4 miles an hour, so it's about a mile an hour shy on the fastest sled. But 4th place, though, 49.47. And again, he managed to recover that second big pressure in the Kreisel and just drill it right down the middle on the exit. So that saved his bacon.
It did, yeah. When you get that second wave in the pressure in Kreisel, you really have to make sure you control it on the third one. Otherwise, you can risk coming around the corner and coming back up again.
Yeah, and rolling it off the Kreisel is not a good place to be in.
No, definitely not, especially in a 4-man. Sled starts to rise. He recognizes it. He's still got his steer on, actually. If you look at the runners, he backs it off immediately, and then he does a really good job of collecting this third pressure to be able to kind of save it, and it takes the second best option to get out of the corner, which is just kind of falling out down the middle.
Yeah. It's all fractional adjustments, isn't it? And fractional time losses as well, but they all add up. He's in 4th place, Russia 2-4. Oskars Kibermanis leads for Latvia as we get to Dominik Dvorak of the Czech Republic. In last year's race here, the final race in January before we went to the Winter Games, he finished in 20th place. This year, well, he was coming on strong last year. This year, he has really broken into the top 10 firmly. 7th, 8th, and 6th last week. He's on a very strong run in 2- and 4-man form.
These guys have been just so impressive all year. The way they've been sliding day in and day out, they're obviously always a contender. So in this brand new 4-man sled they just got this year, actually, I think it was a couple weeks ago before Christmas.
A nice early Christmas present, and it's keeping their form up as well.
488 on the push. They always have one of the top pushes as well. Always impressive.
It's the whole package, isn't it? You've got to have everything. You've got to have good kit, you've got to have a good start, and the driver's got to be able to carry that speed.
And he's actually lacking a little bit of speed, and I think that's a direct result of him actually kind of overcorrect in the bench race.
The bad run through the labyrinth, top 5 run at the moment. He was second fastest at the start. Again, new kit, as you know, you've got to get used to it, haven't you? You know, there's subtle differences in how it feels, and everything has to be instinctive. It's all by feel.
Absolutely, and the best way you can do it is just by, or getting used to the new sleds is just by getting run volume in it. And when you're on tour, you actually don't get as much of the run volume as you would, for instance, when you start the year off, you just go somewhere to train, and I don't think they have the sled yet.
Yeah, so learning all the way. Every day's a school day in this sport. Here he is on the bend away, takes the steer and then a slide, and gets the tap that he was trying to avoid.
Yeah, it looks like he almost was trying to shoot the bend away there. So sometimes it's a risk-reward sort of deal, and it's very hard to do. So most people just accept and take the... Oh, he's got full lock on the steer there. Holy cow.
Big old steer.
Yeah. So that tells me that he wasn't had enough control of that third pressure.
Yeah. He was saving it there, wasn't he? If he hadn't put in the big steer, Robin Hooding it off the corner, they'd have been rolling down. Not a nice place to go.
Definitely not.
Next up, our Olympic silver medalist, joint Olympic silver medalist, Hyun Jung won a career, the 33-year-old. His 34th World Cup start in 4-man. He's really, he was in his early days career's main 4-man driver, and remains so. And the guys behind him, relatively new, 11, 6, and 21 World Cup starts in order.
96, so they're a little bit of a deficit here at the start, and they're going to have to try and drive the way back, which this track is so short that it's really hard to do. You have to be pretty much perfect if you want to close that gap.
12th and 9th in a double 4-man race in Winterberg, 7th in Altenburg. He just corrected the slide there and actually managed to stop it happening. You don't see that work.
Yeah, you'll see a couple sleds be able to do that. A lot of the guys, if they recognize that the back end is about to step out, you'll see them quickly wiggle the runners back and forth, and that will try and straighten the sled out before it breaks into a full spin.
Good-looking run from one down the lower part of the track. Only 8th at the start. He's in 3rd place on the splits. This is a very good bottom half of the track from Hyun Jung won a career, 49.26. There's his coach, Rico Peder, on the left-hand side. Driving coach for the Koreans. 49.26 leaves him a quarter of a second off the lead, probably out of medal contention. But after that little exit from S4, almost caught him out. It was pretty clean.
Yeah, pretty good, and I think he'll be happy with that one. And quarter of a, yeah, that was a really good correction actually by him to recognize just that he didn't get off S4 as much as the sled needed to, and just immediately recognized and was able to correct it before it became detrimental into a major skid.
And look at that, barely moved the crew out of their seats down in the lower labyrinth. Nice stuff out of the Kreisel.
The Germans definitely know how to throw a party.
Yeah, they do. They all come out to watch it as well. This is a very big part of the town's history here. Well, next up is our 10th sled. This is the local boy, Johannes Lochner. He's still wearing that patch on the right-hand side when he crashed in Altenburg in the 2-man, injured his shoulder. Now, there's been a change on the sled. Florian Bauer now starting at 2, Mark Rademacher at 3. Christian Rasplow remains the man at 4 on the back handles.
Oh, and we had a little bit of a slip there. If you can see, it is raining out there, and I gotta wonder if those bunks are getting wet, getting a little slippery, and it makes a big difference.
Yeah, you see the driver, the brakeman, particularly in turn 3, sort of sometimes doing little practice hop-ups onto it when they're waiting to go, just to make sure that they know that they're going to get the grip from their spikes.
You can't be thinking too much about it. It's one of those things when you actually go down, you have to just start and trust that the bunk's going to be underneath your foot when you're trying to load.
When you think about it, you're going to make it happen. Here we go, down through the bottom of the lower labyrinth. He's only 100th behind, 500ths back at the start.
And there's the green numbers.
All right, here we go. So he will take the lead away from Oscar's Kiebermanis, but by how much? And is this going to allow the 4-man world champion to claim another win on the track? 48.97. There are the Bavarians and the Team Lochner flags. Uncle Rudy Lochner, a very successful bobsledder. He was in Altenburg where he claimed his world championship result.
Crowd's gonna go wild for the local boy here. Nancy had a great run.
Well, Nico Walter won last year, and Hansi wasn't on the podium, but 2 years ago in the World Championships.
And here's the slip.
Yeah.
It just looks like he just went to go load, missed the bunk, and managed to get himself in. That was an excellent recovery, because overall it obviously didn't hurt their start time too much. 86, that's the second fastest.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's the experience, you know, the more you do these things, the more experienced the crew are, the more those little errors are going to not cost you so much.
It's all about how you recover as well.
Johannes Lochner leads for Germany, 10 down, 13 to go. We've had one of our four-man world champions. Here is the man who tied him 2 years ago. Here's the man who is the four-man Olympic champion as well, Francesco Friedrich, the 28-year-old.
82, what a push by these guys.
Yeah, and again, you know, this is the way it works in the German program. Everybody wants to be on a winning sled, so the driver who has the best form tends to end up with brakemen coming to him.
Takes a tap on the right wall, and you can see him again with those runners, and he got the sled right back under control.
Second fastest start, he's now in the lead over Johannes Lochner. The gaps come down, just 800ths of a second now.
Lochner was quite clean at the bottom, and I think Friedrich was a little bit quicker through the S's, but I'm going to guess that he's getting, that's not going to help.
300s, he's still third fastest, but is he in front of the line? He's not. 600s back. Got a good race on our hands. Top three covered by 600s. Hansi Lochner, Oskars Kiebermanis, Francesco Friedrich. Friedrich shakes his head.
Yeah, he's going to be a little disappointed with that one. Can't be making mistakes and breaking the sled into a skid on the uphill corners. That will kill all the speed that you're trying to maintain as you're coming around there.
Well, pulls it off early from S4 as well.
Yeah, but he did a really good job of recovering and getting his sled right back under control. And he actually took that tap and then into the natural 3 taps right from there. Yeah, he just forgot to steer it off the end of Echo here, looks like.
Well, we were talking yesterday in the second heat of the four-man. If you want movie to study, if you want a video to study, just watch his second run in the two-man, that's fine. That's not the one to watch in the four-man. Not yet, we'll have to wait for the second heat.
Yeah.
We've had one Austrian sled. We now have our second Austrian sled, 24-year-old Benny Meyer. Silver medalist here last year, but then he was fit and healthy. This year he's got a badly torn leg muscle, and so he has been sitting in for the last couple of races. And is he going to sit in here? Yes, he is. His driver's push bar is not out. So Kilian Walch, Arjen Platzkummer and Danet Moldovan will do the heavy lifting.
It's really tough for them, too, because now they've got to get this extra weight going off the block as well. So it's really impressive when you see these guys and the kind of push times they can come up with that are quite competitive, even with an extra weight in the sled.
Even worse in the two-man, where one guy on the back is doing the work of two. 5:20.
So that's going to cost him, and it's going to be really tough. And Benny's a great driver here, so hopefully he is able to drive himself back into the race and still make the cut.
Well, 12th fastest start of 12. He's now ahead of Drazen Silic of the Czech Republic. He knows how to drive. His results, even sitting in, he was 10th place in Altenburg last week.
That was impressive.
Yeah, a couple of errors creeping in, though. Those taps down the straightaway he could have done without.
Really quite through there. Nice exit. He's just going to be too far behind from that start.
Yeah. Now the question is whether he makes the cut or not, and then how far up the order he can get it on the second run. Let's see where he comes across the line. 49.75. So he's ahead of Drazen Silic and 500ths behind Brad Hall, who started 4.90 compared to 5.20 Benny Meyer.
Wow.
So that is quite some driving. He started 0.3 of a second behind Brad Hall, finished 500ths behind him.
Yeah. Now these guys...
Look at the height. And yet, uses it well.
Yeah, I mean, in Echo, again, a lot of people drive it that corner so differently. There's so many different lines. I swear every time we come here, we have to learn a new line, how to get through there. It just depends on how it's cut. And I think the ice probably has a lot of grip in it right now, and you just, when you put in that first steer, when you release it, the sled actually starts to rise because you've released the pressure.
All right, next up is the third of our German sleds. Last year's race winner, Nico Walter, winner here twice in the last 3 or 4 seasons. Marco Hubenbecker back on the sled at 2, Alexander Rödinger and Eric Franke. And after what looked like a calf tear yesterday. Nico Walter is sitting in. We kind of wondered whether he would have to.
Yeah.
Now, this has got to be a different dynamic because you don't have that massive surge of adrenaline from the sprint, but the adrenaline helps your brain focus on the drive.
It's a little bit different. I mean, I think when a lot of new pilots are learning, they start by sitting in the sled, and it just makes it a different sport because now you only have to rely on your hands and your brain, whereas before you have to get that massive push and you're using your body and every ounce of force you have, and then you're able to turn it off.
Well, the horse has got him away to a 4:98 start. That's impressive stuff.
Especially when you're only pushing with 3 guys with extra weight in the sled.
And he's up to 6th place on the splits.
He's having an absolutely great run. Nico's awesome here in the 4-man. He won here last year.
You'll think about sitting in more often. Look at this. 3rd fastest speed at the bottom, 5th at the line, sitting in. 2900s back. He is tied with Hyun Jung of Korea. 4 men pushed the Korean sled away in a 4:96. 3 men pushed the German sled with 90-odd kilos of Walter in it in a 4:98.
Yeah, you got it. These guys are fired up right now. The crowd's just giving it to them.
Oh, look how ginger he is getting out there.
He's hurt.
Yes, he is. I think he's torn his... Yeah, he's torn his hamstring, hasn't he? Or done something really quite nasty to it yesterday.
Yeah.
Well, those 3 guys, that's an impressive start.
Absolutely. And you can see he's still doing his pre-race or pre-run routine. He's just doing it from in the sled, and I think that's a really important part of kind of the rhythm of going through. And
look at Hubi's knees, right behind his driver's ears almost. There's a lot of Marco Hubenbecker to fit in a sled.
He is a big guy. Yeah. How tall do you think he is?
I think he's 198. He's 6'7".
Yeah.
Yeah. There's a lot of him.
Using his knees to sandwich Nico.
Well, Monaco now back with the World Cup. And the guy on the back, Steven Borges Mendocena, he tore his hamstring in the first race in Winterberg. So they haven't had a 4-man entry since. And he's back and just about healthy. 4:94 getaway, because the brakeman can't sit in. He actually has to push.
He actually has to push, yeah. That would be interesting. And even Rudy, it looked like his hand slip on the push as well, so. Yeah.
Well, they got away to the 9th fastest start, but drifting a little down to 11th place. So 1 run so far this season in the 4-man World Cup. He had 8th place finish in Winterberg. It's a great start to the year. If he can put this in the top 10, and he is in the moment, we've got a couple of sleds coming up that might ease him out of the top 10, but this is a very good-looking run from Rudy Rinaldi. Up into 9th place on the splits, and at the line, where does he finish? 8th. It's been a weekend for the Tiddlers, hasn't it? I mean, Monaco, 30 years and more of bobsledding, but not the hugest nation. That's a really good run.
That was a great run, and he was clean where he needed to be and was able to carry some of that speed as they were going through the bottom. Now, these guys don't want to be going... This is where he missed the bar, too, so I think they'll be able to find a couple more hundreds on the push. It really makes a big difference if you're not having both hands on contact. And you can see the brakeman, and it looks like that outrun is getting quite soft because a couple of them have shot up through the end, and you really want to be saving your runners as much as possible for the second run. Yep. And you don't want to end up in there.
And when it was snowy in training, you were slowing down uphill much more quickly, and of course now they're going quicker. And I'm not sure if he had a run as clean as that in training either.
Maybe not.
So good run from Rudy Rinaldi, 8th place. That should be top 10 at the end of the first heat. Now, what can Justin Cripps do? He's led the last 2 man races, or his only 2-man race of the season after the first heat. 2 silver medals. The 2-man Olympic champion. See what he can produce in the 4-man.
487 on the start. I'm sure the boys are going to want to get a couple more hundreds off and try and...
Well, 1 4-man World Cup race, Riz, so far. He was 12th last weekend in Altenburg.
Good looking run from Cripps.
Yeah. Wow, just 300s off the lead.
Yeah, and those nice double parallel drops down through the bend-away is what you want to see to help to carry your velocity.
And still a relatively young braking crew as well. There's lots of kind of athlete turnover after Pyeongchang.
Yeah, this crew has been together all year, though, and they're really starting to come on together. They're doing a really great job. Cam wants me to say hi to his mom, so hello, Cam's mom.
All right, 49.28. That's not a bad run at all. Todd Hayes and Graham Richardson watching from the coach's box. Justin Cripps in 7th place, ahead of Marcus Treichel, Rudy Rinaldi, and Alexander Bredekin. And just a couple of hundreds behind Nico Volter and Hyun Jung Won.
The ice looks like it's getting really soft out there. I'm wondering if this weather is playing a big conditions and how well the track's going to.
Well, when it, and plus, you know, it's +3, +4, so that doesn't help the ice surface either.
Yeah. That textbook bend away, though.
Right in the middle of the runner grooves, you can see all the marks the runners leave.
Yeah, Cripps does a great job of controlling all the waves and coming around and having enough pressure at the exit of Kreisel here that you can choose your exit and be able to set yourself up for the tabletops.
Now, I had a note written down that this was going to be his last run in Europe, because last night he told me, interview after the two-man race, yeah, we're heading home to Canada to go and train up for the World Championships, but plans changed overnight because of an airline strike, so we'll see him next week in Innsbruck. Hansi Lochner, Oster's keeper man is Francesco Friedrich. What a tight top 3 we've got. 16th of our 23 sleds in the 4th four-man bobsleigh World Cup of the season. Ivo de Bruin, again, another good two-man run yesterday. 4-man so far this season, 14th, 11th, 14th.
See what the guys are able to do today.
Dennis Venkel, a tall bearded brakeman at 3, was one of those swimming in the Königssee on Friday, the enforced day off. 496.
He's coming down the left wall there. That's where we're really trying to aim. Coming out of Teufelsmühle.
12th fastest. It means Devil's Windmill, apparently.
Is that what it means?
Devil's Wall, Teufelsmühle, yeah. 12th fastest start, 12th on the splits as he comes out of S4, down the bend away. Couple of taps, nothing dramatic. 1:13 is decent speed, 70.3. The fastest was only 1:13.5. Top 10 run, Ivo de Bruin, starting to really get his head around this season.
Absolutely, Ivo's having a great run here. This is
9th fastest run. And at the line, 9th place, 0.4 behind, 49.37. No wonder Tom Delahunty is looking happy with that. 9th place, ahead of Rudy Rinaldi of Monaco by 500ths. And behind Marcus Treichel by 3. 900ths behind Justin Cripps. That's a really good run. He's been working with a sports psychologist this season because he's so often trained really well. When there's no pressure and it doesn't matter. And then when he's got to the race, he's kind of been a bit tight, and that's where the mistakes come in. And it looks like it's flowing so much better now.
Yeah, and a great load by the guys getting in and down all at the same time in unison, and that's really going to help carry down for those first couple S's. And Ivo's just been executing well in the races these days.
Look, that's what you want to see. Not that look of strained frustration, a big smile, and making it fun again like it was when you got into it. That's the key, isn't it?
As Chris Spring likes to say, fun is fast.
Fun is fast. And talk about riding the crest of wave. Ivo de Bruin's having a good season. Roman Heinrich of France, what a couple of weeks he's had. 5th in the two-man last week. The best French result in 20 years in this century. 4th yesterday, and a European medalist. Now, a sensational two-man season so far. He was here in 4-man last year, but he was a brakeman pushing Loic Kosterg, so this is his first 4-man race on the track.
These guys have had some impressive finishes in the last couple of days, and Roman's he's really become a very good pilot very quickly.
12th fastest start as well, puts him just where he needs to be. This is his World Cup debut as a 4-man driver, as opposed to a 4-man brakeman. 12th place on the splits. There is still speed in the track, Riz. Maybe not to take the lead, but there is still speed in the track. Maybe the grip is helping the less experienced drivers keep the sled on line.
Yeah, well, one thing you really have to remember when the ice does have a lot of grip is you have to actually be freer with your hands. Because the more you control it, the slower that's the speed will be.
49.48. There's Max Robert on the right-hand side, former French brakeman for Bruno Mijon. And 12th place at the start, 12th place at the line. World Cup debut as a four-man driver. Boy, these guys have been having so much fun in the two-man race. Now I think they're about to start having fun in the four-man as well.
Absolutely. Got to be happy with that run. Great.
So Leonard Fevre, Jérôme Bouterin and Dorian Hauteville, they're the crew. Bouterin at just 80 kilos, reckons he's the lightest brakeman in the men's field. Not much heavier than some of the female brakewomen either.
Yeah, I'd say he'd rival a couple of them, actually.
Yeah. Well, look at him at the back. You know, he's Max Robert size. I'm sure if he was measuring in feet and inches, he'd be using fractions. Always a sign that they're not that tall.
Yeah. Does a good job of holding himself down in the back there.
Okay, now, next up is Michael Vogt of Switzerland. Last year was his first ever year of driving. He raced in the Europa Cup. This year, his second ever year of driving. He's in the World Cup. The Swiss are very, very excited about this young man, and rightly so, I think.
Okay.
Technical infringement with the sled in Winterberg in the first race. They got DQ'd, 12th in the second race. That's his only World Cup result.
5:04 at the start. Oh, and then he had a rough entrance into Treichel there. Anytime you hit before that, it's detrimental to your velocity.
So 16 fastest starts in a field of 18 so far.
He's going to need to be...
Ooh.
I was just going to say, he's going to need to be as clean as possible down here. He's going to try and make some speed up.
111.4, 69.2. That's about 1.5 kilometers shy of the fastest sleds, but these Citius sleds are always quick when the numbers climb. Slowest sled at the moment, barring Dratz and Silic. So for him, making the cut is going to be the key focus here. 12 fastest speed at the bottom. Does it bring him up a spot? Not quite. 49.98. That's half a second slower than Roman Heinrich of France just now.
Yeah, and that's definitely all just from driving. He made a couple critical errors, especially that entrance into the very first corner there. And it's going to be a hard one to come back from if he gets a second run.
Well, he walks away from the sled. I think he knows his day is probably done.
And the brakeman just gets launched up at the back, and that's never a good sign.
Well, there are a few mistakes that are absolutely critical here, and he committed all of them, didn't he?
Yeah, unfortunately, I think so.
Well, you know, again, it's all experience. You know, you've got to learn somehow, and the somehow you learn in this trade is by doing the runs, and that means you've got to do them in races as well.
And for the fact that this is only his second year driving, and he's already competing in these World Cups, it's nowhere to go from up
Well,
from here.
Exactly. Well, our second Canadian sled is Nick Polignato. Like Justin Cripps, didn't compete in the World Cup before the Christmas-New Year break. So he was 17th in Altenburg on his first four-man race of the season.
Polo's got a crew of basically brand new bobsleighers.
All brand new.
Yeah, the guys have been putting in non-stop efforts in the garage, doing loads and practices, and just really trying to get in the rhythm so they can get on race day and be ready to go for the day.
It's that muscle memory thing, isn't it? Repetition builds experience, builds practice, and that builds perfection. 16th on the split times. So he's ahead of Benny Meyer.
Polo, I think, was doing a little bit too much at the beginning there. He looked like he might have been overdriving a little bit in this for these ice conditions, and that might have something to do with.
Decent speed at the bottom. He's going to pick up 2 or 3 spots. He does. 14th place, 49.64. That puts him safely into the second heat. So no dramas about that. 4.98 start was the 15th fastest. So he managed to outdrive their start.
And I think he'll be thinking similar to what he was doing yesterday and looking to spend some time in the leader box in the second heat.
Yeah.
No major mistakes here. He manages to get out of that, pushed over from the round ice into that first tap for the bend away.
Nice looking line in the Kreisel, right down the center of the runner marks.
Polo was saying before he was really happy with his Kreisel here this time around. He really starting to understand it. And I think it's, again, just from coming back to a track and getting more experience.
And that gives you the speed all the way down the rest of the run as well. If you give it away in the Kreisel, there's nowhere else to find it. So.
Exactly.
Another World Cup debutant in four-man, made his World Cup debut in two-man yesterday. Dmitry Popov of Russia, not related to Yevgeny Popov, their former driver and now coach. Peter Masayev, new boy Nikolai Nedlikov, And then Denis Korotkov, who's a relatively new brakeman as well this season. So the Russians trying out new drivers in the World Cup. We've had 3 brand new Russian drivers so far this season. He is the 3rd of them. Top Russian at the moment, Maxim Andronov in 4th, Alexander Brodikin 11th. If Popov can get anywhere near here, he'll be doing really well. Again, very short on run time here, like everywhere else. 4:99 start.
These Russians, all 3 teams, have pretty decent start time, so it's good to see the depth of the program.
1300s off the fastest start, should leave him around a second and change behind at the bottom. Let's see where he gets to.
Great exit out of this one. 12 the speed. Not quite what the top guys had, but you're right, I think there's still some speed left in this track.
Yes, there is. So 17th at the start, up to 15th place, ahead of Justin Olsen of the USA, who started 2nd fastest, and Brad Hall, who started 3rd.
Decent looking run for a young driver.
All right, 17th place. It kind of drifted it away at the bottom, but 49.73. He's got Benny Meyer, he's got Mikhail Vogt, Dratzen Silic behind him, so he will make the 2nd heat. So he's in. He's 300s behind Brad Hall, and in fact, the 2 sleds ahead of him started 2 and 3 out of the start shed. So was the track a little bit frosty right at the beginning?
That could play a major factor into it, and sometimes, when they do the hot spritz right before, if depending on what the humidity and stuff is in the air, it makes a difference of whether that sprit is actually helping or hurting you, and the more sleds go down. This is a major mistake here where he hauled it off the corner. You're actually not supposed to steer in that corner at all.
I think that had the hallmarks of a bit of, I'm not quite sure where I am, I need to be safe here. And you know, inexperience does that. Hansi Lochner leads from Oscar Kiebermanis and Francesco Friedrich of 20 sleds down of our field of 23. 3 sleds to go, the race is full. Cody Basque now has to try and force his way into a packed field. 20th in his only 4-man race this season. That was sitting in Altenburg. But this weekend he is pushing. Broke the handle off the sled, crashing it last week. So he has to push. That's the old school style, pushing on the cow.
Wow. He broke it off last week and he's still it.
They don't have a spare handle.
Okay, well.
They don't have a spare sled. They got torn off last week, so he's pushing on the cow the way that they used to in the 50s and 60s.
Yeah, and to have a 5-second start, that's not too bad. Push it on top of the sled.
So, men do amend in their attitude at the start. Let's see what he can do. He's in 18th place on the split, so that's 2 sleds behind him. Got to get ahead of Benny Meyer, who started in 5:20. Meyer had a very clean bottom part of the track.
Come around these uphill corners, trying to make sure that you're not losing any speed.
All right, he comes across the line in 18th. Mikhail Vogt and Dratzen Silic behind him, but is it enough? 49.75, 200s behind Dmitry Popov of Russia, and tied with Benny Meyer. And there are 2 sleds left. They are tied for 18th. There are 2 behind them. So they'll either both be in or both be 20. Yeah, no, they're in. They're in because they can only be 20th equal if 2 sleds go quicker. So Cody Basque pushing on the cow. Took a long time to get his knees in as well.
Yeah, he struggled to. It would be super hard to load from that position because usually a lot of drivers use the bar jumping off of it to swing their legs into the sled. So if you've got to get your hand on top of it and get your legs up and under, and a little bit of an acrobatic move.
So Chris Kinney and Jimmy Reed at 2 and 3 struggling to load as well. Well, they're in. He's not quite sure the way the math works. They're 18th. There are 2 sleds to go. The worst they can be is 20th equal. Now then, Matthias Luthi, will he be in the field or will he be out? Had a great day yesterday in the 2-man race. The Poles in the top half dozen. Fantastic result.
Yeah, he drove exceptionally well yesterday. I'm sure he'll be looking to add to that today, get his couple more teammates.
18th in Altenburg, his only World Cup race so far this season. Like the Canadians, didn't do pre-Christmas. And
that's
just avoids the wall.
That's he was actually on the wrong side of the track going into that first corner. You want to be on the left-hand side, and he actually entered from the right, and that makes it really tougher to set you up for these S's, which are critical part of the track. He's already 4/10 back.
All right, 19th fastest at the start in 19th place. So right now he is in the race.
Coming out on the left-hand side of the Kreisel, has a pretty decent tabletops, but at this point you're just trying to hold on to the speed you do have.
All right, it's the uphill section that's make or break now. If he's got enough speed and avoids the rubs, he'll be in the race, and he's 20th, 2 sleds behind him. He is in, but he is on the bubble. So he does not know yet whether he will make the race. Hopefully somebody's told Cody Baskew that yes, he does have to go back to the top and get ready to go again. I can see the sled being loaded on the truck, so they will make their way there. Matthias Luthi has to wait another 2 minutes and 30 seconds to find out whether he is in the race or not.
Yeah, and he just made a couple critical mistakes at the top of the track that just set him up. He was pretty clean through the bend away and had a decent Kreisel, but it's the top of the track that I bet he wished he could press the reset button for.
Hauling it off there. You can see the runner tips. They're really steering hard. We've seen a few sleds like that.
Pretty decent in the tabletops. We used to have a lot of trouble with them, and the way they're cut this year, they've actually been a little bit more forgiving. So we're able to, you know, take different steers and still be able to get out of there. You might not necessarily have to haul it off as hard as you would.
Final sled for Billy Meyerhans of Switzerland. Mario Kamelin, Roger Leimgruber and Cyril Bieri, 2 new brakemen in the sled again this weekend. So Billy got eased out of the 2-man berth in the Swiss Championships by Michael Vogt, still with the 3rd Swiss 4-man sled. His 2-man sled now being used by Brad Hall. He loaned the sled and the runners to the Brits for yesterday's race. 5:11 getaway. And that is the 21st start of 23 sleds.
See what Billy can do in the track and try and drive his way back into this race.
There is no greater enthusiast for the sport than Billy Meyerhans.
Absolutely not.
Such a live wire. 21st place at the moment. He's got to get ahead of Michael Vogt and Matthias Luthi of Poland.
A little bit of a wiggle there in the sled and through that second pressure, but he did a good job controlling it coming around the third.
Oh, but that first big hit sent them sideways down through the lower labyrinth.
Anytime you see the brakeman shifting and rock and rolling and a little escape coming up there, not going to help.
Yeah, 22nd place. He's not going to make the race, and at the line, finishing in 22nd ahead of Drazen Silic. So Billy Meyerhans does not make the second heat with a 50.55. A 50.05 run rather, so we will, I'm sure, see that run through the labyrinth again, but the brakemen will have known all about that, won't they?
Absolutely. I think as a brakeman, the best thing you can hope for is just a smooth ride down, and anytime you feel the sled jumping around like that, you know you're like every 100th there, 100th there, you feel it out.
See the knees, the guy at 2, he's riding cannonball with his knees right under his chin rather than his legs around the driver, and that means those impacts are going to be even more uncomfortable. Down into the labyrinth, here we go. First hit.
And he is a little bit late starting the steer off the first tabletop. So when he starts the steer, if you lose you're late with it, you don't have enough time to actually rotate the runners to get it going the other way.
Yep.
And that's why you take that big hit and it shoots you up.
All that energy lifting a loaded 4-man sled, it isn't easy. Well, our first heat leader is Hansi Lochner, despite slips at the start. The local hero, the winner here 3 races ago, is the man who leads 400s ahead of Oskars Kiebermanis, 600s ahead of Francesco Friedrich, who won the last 2 races here, including the World Championships, where he tied with Lochner. So Nico Walter, the winner last year, is in a fine 5th position, tied with Hyun Jung despite having to sit in, but from a third of a second back, really not in the medals. Anginov might, but he needs somebody ahead of him to flake. I think our top 3 are going to battle for victory and the also-rans, but right behind, look at the gaps. 500s, 100th, 400s, tiny margins. We've got, what, 3 ties through the field, including for 18th equal. Michael Vogt, Piers Meyerhans, and Drazen Silic will join the fans trackside for the second heat. join Alicia Rissling and me, Martin Haven, with the IBSF TV crew for the final race here in Königssee, Bavaria. Sleds will be on ice. We'll be on air at 3 p.m. local. That's 1400 Greenwich Mean Time. Join us, please. Until then, auf Wiedersehen from Königssee.